So we now have the bullet being created on our player character, but what we want to do is actually move this bullet up. We don't want it to just stay there. That's not very exciting for a bullet unless we're actually placing a mine and it's supposed to stay in one spot, but we're trying to create a bullet. So we need to be able to apply some sort of force. We need to be able to move this object up after we shoot. Now we could apply a force inside of the player's script and have it pushed up on when it gets created and move it that way, but what we want to do is try to maintain some of the control on the individual objects themselves. So if we're going to have a speed, if we're going to move the bullet, let's go ahead and apply those properties to the bullet itself and do most of the control from the bullet instead of having to be in a player script working on a bullet. So we're going to go in, we're going to kind of detour for just a second on the player script, and we're going to take a look at our bullets. We're going to double click on our script for our bullet, and inside of here we've got just our basic setup. So let's go ahead and run over here and just borrow our little header for this. And instead of our player script, this is just our bullet script. And we've got some inspector variables. And we'll go ahead and set up our private variables. And we've got a game loop that we're going to be working with. And inside of here, okay, so we've got our variables. If we're trying to move an object, just like before with our character, we were able to apply speed to our character, have it go up in a direction by itself just by placing the translation inside of the update. So we're going to do kind of the same thing. We're just going to want to get a speed variable. So let's call this our variable speed. We'll call it our bullet speed. And we'll have it a float, and we'll make it equal to, let's say, about 15 to start. We'll see how that does for us. And let's go ahead and just leave a comment. Speed of the bullet. And we don't have any real private variables just yet. And in our update, what do we want to do? We want to move this object. So again, if you're thinking, oh, what was that? Let's try our transform. And we look back in our API and we've got a transform. And we want to move our object. This allows us to move and rotate the object. So we see position, and then we see translate for the functions and rotate. So let's check our translate. And again, we get back to this page, transform.translate along the vector. What direction are we going to send it in? And then we can put our speed onto that one. So let's go on into here, and we're going to be doing what? We're going to be transforming dot, so we're calling to our class and to our function, translate, and then we have a vector3 dot forward. If we're looking down here, we can see they've got forward dot up. These are shortcuts to be able to go back in, and if we take a peek at it, we can see that the shorthand, the shortcut for it is simply vector3001, so that it goes in a forward direction, XYZ. Z is bringing it forward. For us, though, we're going to go ahead and just type in the variable that we want. We're going to keep it a little bit more readable in the beginning. So we have transform translate 000, but we want to send it in what direction? We're going to send it going up, right? So we're going to go on the y direction, xy, and we're going to have it based on our bullet speed. So let's take our bullet speed, and then we can take this one, we're going to be multiplying this by what? Time dot delta time. And that makes our bullet move up. So we can save that one out, jump back over, make sure we don't have any kind of errors, no errors on it. Now if we're just simply to play it with what we've got right now, and we hit our space bar, there we go. We're actually firing a bullet from our character. Now when we fire this bullet, though, if you'll notice, we have lots and lots of prefabs being created. If I select on one of them, I can see that in the transform position for the Y, it's continuing to go up, up, and up into infinity, and we haven't actually done anything to get rid of this bullet. We've simply created it, and we're moving it up in space, but we still want to be able to get rid of it so that we can clean up memory, so we don't have just objects floating around in space taking up memory. Because if we started playing a game, let's say 15-20 minutes into it, you've shot 1,000 bullets, it might have a little bit of an impact. So the next thing we want to do is just check for a range. We want to say that once this bullet reaches, let's say, the top of our screen, and maybe even a little higher than the screen, a little bit above the top of the screen, then we want to get rid of that object. We want to destroy it. So we're going to go back into our update, and we're going to check for something. We're going to have to do a conditional. We're checking for something happening. So we're going to say if the transform dot position, so let's do our transform, and what axis is this going to be on? This is going to be on the y-axis. So the transform.position.y is greater than or equal to, and then what we want to do is find out how high is it. So if we go all the way up to the top of the screen, and then we say let's go just a little bit higher, we're somewhere in 8, 9, 10 range, something like that. So let's say if our position is higher than, let's do 10. That's a nice number. Then what do we want to do? We want to get rid of this object. We want to destroy the object. So let's go into our API. Let's see if we can find a way to destroy something. We'll say destroy. And fortunately for us in the API, we've got an object destroy. It says removes a game object, component, or asset. So that sounds just perfect. Let's go in and take a peek at it. And the function says destroy, and the name of the object we want to destroy. And then we also have a float variable for removing it based on a time. So the object will be destroyed now, or if the time is specified t, then how many seconds from that point. So this is a great little function we can use to clean up the objects in the scene that we're not wanting to actually have in our hierarchy. So we can go down here, we can take a peek at it, and it looks just as simple as destroy game object. Now game object is the object that's being created. So when it's asking for the object, it could be game object, it could be dot some other type of object that's associated with it, a parent, a child of that object. But we're going to destroy just the whole game object. So we'll go in, we're going to say destroy, and we're going to destroy what? Game object. That's this object. And we're not going to do it on a timer because we really just want to get rid of it the second it's off screen. So let's save that script out. Let's go back over here. And no errors, so we'll hit play. And now when we hit play, we can see that watching the hierarchy here, it gets created and it gets destroyed. If we look up a little bit so we can watch this bullet go, we can see that it ends right in here. And this is the range for that bullet. And if we want to, we can go ahead and just pause it. We'll select on that object, and then let's step through. And we can see that along our transform Y, the bullet's going up and up. And we'll continue stepping up, and we're getting right at that 10 value that we had set in. So if we go up one more, we're probably just about, and we're gone. So you can see we're just making it up to that variable that we set right here, the height right in here, and then we get rid of that object. So let's do one other thing. This goes back to what variables do we set and establish for a game designer. And for us, we've got a bullet speed, but we're also hard coding in again that variable of how high. Now, again, we have to go back to the script, so let's not make it so hard coded. Let's bring it out to the inspector. That's really the strength of Unity, is that we can just bring these variables out and then make those adjustments as a designer. So let's say this is going to be the So we've got our height limit, and this is just going to be our float, and we're going to set this one, we had it at 10 inside the code, so we'll go ahead and just set it back at 10, and we'll comment in on this one. We're going to say this is what? This is the range the bullet can travel. And let's go ahead and replace this one down here. There we go. Okay, so this allows us to establish the height limit for where the bullet is going to be removed at, and we've got it saved out. Let's make sure we've got no errors. We'll hit play again. We look like we're in good shape.